does ServiceNow meet the challenges of government and public sector operations? Well, today I talked to Brett Carl, VP of Industry Solutions and Alliances, about exactly what that looks like. And who am I? Well, welcome. Welcome to GlideFast On Air and to this Lunch and Learn. I'm Kali Alexander, customer advocate and an account executive at GlideFast Consulting. So without further ado, let's welcome Brett Carl to the conversation. Brett, welcome to the conversation.
Hey, Colin, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So today we're talking about public sector digital services, right? Tell me a little bit more about what that means.
Yeah, so public sector digital services is the application that ServiceNow has created to satisfy the requirement for government type institutions from a constituent level, right? So, how do we serve the public good by leveraging ServiceNow? So, they found that gap and filled it by creating PSDS.
Awesome. So when I think about public sector digital service, or when I think about just kind of government organizations in general, I think about organizations that may have but maybe longer processes, maybe legacy systems, and that could just be my own experience, even working within government. Tell me what that looks like. What are some of the challenges that folks on that side of the house are facing?
Yeah, so for a long time, you had this invisible wall between government and the people. How do I fulfill my needs as a constituent? How do I get that pothole filled? How do I get my licensing or my license registered for fishing? How do I get a business license granted? Or do an application for an alcohol license for running my restaurant. And so with that gap, there was always a I don't know where to go or who to talk to or what to do. And for ServiceNow, it allows that centralized system where constituents and citizens, business owners can go and communicate directly with that government institution with the proper workflows, directing traffic of the approval process between any approvers on the federal side, federal civilian side, or state and local side to that constituent and that voter.
Yeah. It excites me to hear that ServiceNow is addressing this. I kind of chuckle in my head because back in my day, when I used to work for LA County Assessor's Office,
Mm.
the height of our technological sophistication at that time, and I thought that I was just that girl when I got my own microfiche machine. Like I was just like, oh my God, I am that girl. Look how special I am. I have this beautiful microfiche machine and all of these catalogs of all of these various parcels or pieces of property within LA County was able to kind of look this up. Well, the moment that it was published, even before it was published, that information was already outdated, right? So when we
Mm.
talk about service now, we're talking about information like up to date information and being able to move processes along with the speed of thought. So I'm excited. So let's get into what you're going to share with us today, if you don't mind. Are you ready?
Yep, absolutely.
Let's go.
All right, so we're going to just cover a little bit about what PSDS is. We're going to go over some different features that are involved there, and then also get into some use cases for the playbooks that are inside of ServiceNow and how those can help government institutions reach back into the constituent and the citizen side of things. For PSDS, it's essentially the digital platform. It modernizes governments and service delivery by creating a seamless support experience for constituents, businesses, internal, external agencies. So the definition right there pretty much sums it up. And you can look at it as being an application that can be used on the federal civilian side. So your non-military type government agencies are able to leverage PSDS, as well as your military installations that are serving their the armed forces with over 200 sorry over 2 million members that actively serve in order to have that direct line back and forth between helping and people reach services that they might feel disconnected with, and then also the 50 states in the U.S. From the state and local side, as well as even into the county level. So it all really depends on what level of agency that you currently work at or currently support, where they would need different use cases for the PSDS side.
Brett, I appreciate you making that distinction between, county, state, local government. and kind of distinguishing that from military. Why that distinction, and how does that kind of look in terms of who is searching the solution? Would people in military services look for a different solution within ServiceNow?
Yeah, so from the military side, you might need assistance with relocation services. So maybe you're being deployed to a different base, you're going to a different country, a different area, or you're changing an MOS, you're changing your role. You might need assistance for that. Or if you're starting your paperwork for your discharge, you've hit your 20 years or whatever you're serving for, and then you have to do the offload or offboarding process. That's completely different from a constituent or a voter who might want to, for one of the most popular use cases, fill the pothole in the street. Who do I contact? How do I get that filled? Or again, if I want to get my fishing license, what can I fill out? What form can I go to online in order to facilitate that? What's the approval process look like? And so on and so forth. So there's different use cases and different needs, but PSDS is looked at as that layer to have that outbound communication from those people, the constituent and the voter, over to the government side.
Awesome. All right. So what's next?
So we're going to get into a couple of features of PSDS. You could look at PSDS as an extension of customer service management. So the CSM application that ServiceNow has, when you're taking PSDS, you're adding additional features on top of it, different labels, different lexicons, different service catalog items, and different areas that help support that specific need. So again, we're not looking at just saying everyone is an employee or everyone is a customer. A constituent is different than a customer as they have different needs and they're a different persona. And so PSDS allows for that separation between the two, but it is operating on top of ServiceNow and on top of CSM for that CSM engine. Inside of CSM, we have different core components, such as the constituent portal, configurable workspace for your approvals and your agents to work in, government service case, and then also your playbooks that exist. And we're going to dive into a couple of these and talk about some of the features here.
Yeah, I'm really curious and looking forward to, because I believe you're going to talk about what constituent portal looks like. So I'm really excited about that.
Yep, absolutely. So we're not going to get too much into a UI look and feel because that can always be adjusted and tweaked depending upon the branding of the state or the county or the military installation or the federal civilian agency that we have. But mostly just what sort of things can we do? What can be filled out? What can be populated? What can be requested from the constituent? That's what we're going to look at.
Sure.
So just a couple of points here just to cover. When you're getting into the constituent portal and the government agent workspace, it's very important to know that you have out-of-box pages and widgets. Inside ServiceNow, that is your predefined area where someone will go and view information. So you don't have to create everything from scratch. You can use it as a baseline in order to build upon. So if we look at the 80-20 rule, we could say that PSDS fulfills 80% of what we're looking for from a constituent to government agency relationship, but there's that 20% we need to get very specific. Again, I'm not going to go to the US Army for a fishing license necessarily. I'm going to go more on my county level or maybe my state level, depending upon how the state is built out. But we can have that initial page and then also what are called widgets, which would help facilitate that information. So maybe it's a request field or form that we would fill out. Maybe it's a link that we click. Maybe it's a graphic or something that's explaining the process. We're able to leverage the out-of-box or out-of-cloud, however you want to look at it, elements, and then also build from there.
Awesome. Awesome. I love how you broke that down because it really makes me understand like how PSDS, Public Sector Digital Services, is really tailored for that government organization, right? You said use the 80-20 rule. About 80% is everything that you're going to need for your particular organization. We'll need to configure it maybe an additional 20% or so that it's a spot-on solution. So I appreciate you kind of defining that and kind of setting up those parameters. Right on.
In addition to the out-of-box pages and widgets, we also have virtual agent. So virtual agent is a very big piece inside of PSDS. That's where you can go and ask your questions in natural learning environment or natural language environment. So you're able to say, where do I go? You're able to type, where do I go to procure a hunting license? And and then the virtual agent will respond back with a knowledge article or with a service catalog item and direct you to that point to say, here's what you need to fill out. So instead of you having to search the entire portal or get frustrated with trying to find something, you could just go and ask the actual question, similar to a search, but you have that responsiveness and contextual awareness in natural language. So there's not an issue with the loss in translation or getting misinformation from that virtual agent. And from there, we also include the notifications that get sent out for when we're doing the request, the service catalog with some predefined use cases, and then also the self-service tools, which is the portal itself, where again, you're able to have that chat conversation. You can fill out a service request in the constituent portal to get approval or get something sent back to you, such as like maybe a FOIA request can also be a use case that we have here. And then those, again, the self-service tools all encompassing.
Yeah, self-service tools is always exciting, right? Because when you think about self-service tools, we're talking about, reduce time to resolution, reduce cost per ticket, those type of things. And from a constituent point of view, right? I'm excited that I don't have to stand in line or wait on hold, for an indefinite amount of time. So that's really exciting on both sides of the table, whether it's the provider, the government institution, as well as the constituent.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So a lot of benefits and in this feature set inside of a PSDS for sure. The third feature I want to talk about are viewing and managing constituent profiles, services, and data. So here's where we get more into the agent workspace. So you might use a virtual agent, but when someone's creating a request, that might require an approval step. And so with that government agent workspace, the essentially the customer service representatives or the government agents would be able to interact with the end users and have that constituent profile. So think of like a profile for any of your other applications for social media or business application where it has your name, your email address, your phone number. All those different profiles would be stored from the ServiceNow perspective. Or if the agency chooses, they can make it more public. So if something is supposed to be more anonymized and anonymous, they can be wide open, or it's more narrow. We have to register for an account. And CSM and PSDS allow for that to create those profiles so that things can be tracked. We can see, okay, when was the last time that you obtained your fishing license? When was the last time that you did the pothole request? You'll be able to track everything that you've submitted as that constituent.
Awesome.
And then lastly, we're looking at the create cases on behalf of constituents. So if there's any sort of an issue where someone might not have the technology to create something inside of ServiceNow, maybe they don't have access to a laptop or a desktop, but they have a phone number. So they pick up the phone, they call, and they get a government agent to pick it up. And when they're having that conversation about what needs to be done, where that pothole needs to be filled or whatever, the government agent can open a case on their behalf. And so this can be just a way to track all the different case management type perspective instead of just submitting a paper form and it getting lost in the pile, or not tracking the consistency of when was the last time I was here and the last time I filled something out. So it really helps to maintain that consistency around that single source of truth or that single record of truth inside of ServiceNow. And one thing people might be asking is when you're looking at all these other states or counties, they might have their own systems. So they might have their own way to register for the DMV or their own Secretary of State to get their resources, but that becomes a fragmented system. That becomes a swivel chair. It becomes a system, another system you have to support. And so with ServiceNow, they actually have coverage in all 50 states. It might be in the core state office, or it might be in an adjacent agency like a Department of Transportation. But ServiceNow is in every state in the United States currently. And so by having that platform that exists, with PSDS, you're able to add this on top and expand your reach. So now it's not just back office or working through any sort of an approval process internally. Now it's external for those constituents. So it helps get rid of the sprawl and the fragmentation of those systems.
Awesome.
So just to dive into the playbooks and the services offered, and then we'll get into some of the benefits. You can look at the playbooks as predefined offerings that exist inside of PSDS. So you're not having to think about what else do I have to create in order to this be a benefit. And I'll go into more of the use cases later on in our little conversation here. But just think about the installed playbooks as license and permit playbook, So you're looking at public parks or things that you need to get into a location. Information request is more around FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act. And then also the service request for, again, getting that pothole replaced. So look at those three installed playbooks as things that you might need, things that you might want, or information you want to obtain. And this makes it easier by having that predefined service catalog. It's already built out, that 80-20 rule, and we just have to build upon it from there.
You use the pothole example, quite a bit in our discussion today, and I think of the pothole as sort of like being a stand-in for just about any other request that a constituent might make. Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, it's a simplified approach to understand what people need in their environment. A majority of the country drives on roads,
Hmm.
and every single person that does gets frustrated on potholes,
Yeah.
right? It causes damage to your car. It's bad for the environment. It causes issues with construction when you have to fill it. No one likes potholes. Not a single person, I guarantee you. So by having that viewpoint of, well, what are some things we can ask the government to do and to help serve us from a constituent point of view? That's the easiest example to approach.
Absolutely. Because I think of, and I think it's such a great example because to your point, no matter where you are in the 50 states, potholes is an issue where I think about like issues around like sand. Yeah, I live near the beach. That may not make much sense in middle America, right? So I love that as a stand-in for like just about anything that you might want to call, and get government support and help around. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So I want to get into just a couple of benefits of PSDS. We've talked about some of the features that exist, but looking at it from the government perspective of what they can do and lean in and implement PSDS to help the constituent side, we're looking right around data models and workflows, right? So we can have that innovative constituent experience. So we don't have any sort of expensive custom solutions. So looking for that streamlined approach, building upon that data model inside of ServiceNow to again help those constituents. Also able to have a scalable cloud for the Now platform, and for that we're looking at knowing and that we're not having to have these fragmented systems, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to run out of space. We're able to have everything in the ServiceNow platform. We're able to just have that single system that people can go for as a one-stop shop for all their needs. That's the intended goal, is to help the constituent, to help the back office, to help the government agent, help their job be better performed, and then also deliver better services for that constituent or voter. And then the last thing is the low code, no code capabilities. So we're looking at building out service catalog items. A lot of it is just adding a simple field. It's grabbing information that's already in ServiceNow, not a heavy lift on any sort of scripting and customization because a large majority is there. As far as the workflow creation, it's more of a drag and drop approach and not a long, drawn out, overly customized coding activity.
Yeah.
So really, this is allows us to get new features to constituents so that items are resolved faster, right? Because that's the end goal, is that increasing that constituent experience is what PSDS is all about.
Indeed, indeed. So let's talk about best practices if you're ready for that. I love to get into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So some best practices when you're enabling and implementing PSDS is build applications using the public sector data model. Use it as the baseline approach for when you are trying to address any sort of expansion inside of PSDS. Next, extend the government use cases or case types for the workflows. So things that come packaged or case types that come packaged in PSDS, use those and extend those instead of having to come up with your own. Use a government service portal to serve constituents. There is a constituent portal that comes with PSDS that you can use and leverage in order to not have to recreate the wheel, not have to recreate
Yeah.
any sort of a custom portal. They give you the initial offering, right? The initial go with the service portal that will be able to help again and serve those constituents. And then the next best practice is to empower the constituents to track their own information. So this is important when you're looking at things that have been submitted. If you look at all the different types of environments we have in the US, where you have the county level, the state level, the federal level, some things are sent still today where I have to mail in something. I think we just allowed for passports to be renewed online. It took that long to get to that point where it could be done online. We don't have to actually mail in the passport with the process. It's now a more efficient type model than what we had before. If you're looking at the county level, where you may be more of a rural county, you might still have to walk into a building and fill out a paper form and stand online or in line in order to get served, and then have someone with a big
Mm.
stamp approved, and the date received, right? So from that point, when things get sent out, things get lost, mistakes happen, you have to track everything. This allows not only the U.S. government and state and local to track everything as far as what's being submitted and when, but also for the constituent that's doing the uploading and the submission to track when was that submitted, what's my ETA on getting a response. This is taking too long. I know I can reach out to someone, and it's not just lost in the mail or lost out in the ether. Tracking their own information is important, and having people be enabled to do that is one of the best practices with PSDS. And then lastly, deploying the agent experience for government. That agent workspace in the background, the government agent workspace, being able to have that unified viewpoint of here's my constituent information, here's what they're looking for, here are my resources, whether it be a knowledge base or a service catalog, whatever it might be, building it out as constituent first, end user first, user experience, constituent experience, citizen experience is extremely important for having that best practice for the deployment.
Yeah, I love when you just kind of maybe a Freudian slip where you said inline then online. It made me think like this is really what's happening. You're getting, our constituents are able to get resolutions and self-help online instead of having to stand in line, right? It's a
Mm.
huge difference there.
Yep, absolutely. So as far as best practices, that's what we recommend, and like to get in some use cases
Please, let's
just
do
to
it.
share on some of those playbooks. So the first use case we want to talk about are the social benefits. So the social benefits playbook allows us to tie back the critical financial piece back to the social assistance programs. So think of like Social Security Administration from this case. And how does this help from a government perspective? Is that the government agency is able to use the social benefits playbook to automate the process for unemployment benefits, or for any sort of SSA type benefits that might come due when someone reaches that age, when they choose to obtain those benefits. And then really it allows for the timely disbursement of those benefits and eligible applicants. So some of the benefits that are tied back to the social benefits playbook is the increased processing speed and accuracy of the benefit application, reducing the manual effort for case agents, and then enhancing transparency and consistency in eligibility decisions. So what does that all mean? Essentially, we're going to save time and increase the experience from the social benefits. So when we look at the government, it exists to serve the people. And so these tools, these platforms are to serve the constituents and serve the government agencies. Next, I want to talk about license and permits. So there's actually a playbook that covers this, where you're able to simplify and modernize the delivery of license and permits. So again, if you look at that paper form that you would fill out, we'll fill out this form, scan it back in, wait for an approval, get it back, or take it, drive down the road, take it into my office, get it approved. They get a copy, I get a copy. Hope I don't lose that copy. It becomes a fragmented system. So it's not even a swivel chair system with separate digital systems. It's fragmented by paper. Paper gets lost, paper gets misplaced on either side, and want to make sure that there's that improved experience. And the example we give is more around the city public works department leveraging license and permit playbooks to manage the building permits. So we talked about fishing licenses, but also building permits. Am I allowed to build in this location? Do I have my foundation laid properly? Is my electrical work completed properly? And again, that might be on the city level, it might be in the county level. It just depends on where it fits. So PSDS is able to run the gambit on these different use cases. It just depends on which playbook that you want to utilize. And the benefits here are streamlining and automating the application process, improve transparency, and reduce the workload for city officials without having manual intervention. Has my license been approved yet? Has my permit been approved yet? Well, I can just go and check online with PSDS and ServiceNow, so there's no need to actually have to worry about that. And lastly, we'll talk about information request. So think of this as more along Freedom of Information Act or FOIA, right? I want to get a copy of information on the Fed civilian side of things to either see what was in the bill or what information was talked about in this hearing or in this area behind the scenes. You create that FOIA request. They charge you per page, essentially. It takes time to get the request. So this allows you to use PSDS and ServiceNow as that direct link. As a constituent, I can go on, make my FOIA request, make my payment, and then I'm able to receive my information back in a timely manner. So some benefits here are, efficiently handling of public record requests, enhanced transparency and accountability in government operations, and then improving the response time and reduce backlog of requests. So those are just 3 high-level use cases of how you're able to leverage PSDS in your government organization. And again, it depends on if you're at the county level, the city level, the state level, military, DoD, Department of Defense level, or the Fed civilian level. Again, in a different agency like an EPA or Department of Treasury type approach. So I just wanted to share those.
Absolutely. And that was awesome. And as you were going through the presentation, it made me reflect upon like how beneficial this can be, again, on both sides, whether, the government side or you're a government employee, as well as most importantly on the constituent side, being able to have that seamless experience and not having to stand in line so long or wait on hold so long. So that's going to be an incredible cost saving addition to government operations. Brett, I know that you are Vice President of Industry Solutions and Alliances at GlideFast, and you've been with GlideFast for quite some time. I'm curious from your view, what makes GlideFast uniquely positioned to offer solutions around public sector digital services?
Yeah, so public sector is one of our focus areas from an industry solution perspective at GlideFast. So we have over 60 cleared implementation specialists, architects, technical consultants, business process consultants, engagement managers. So we live in the Fed space, in the DoD space from a cleared perspective. We know what it takes. We know the mission areas. We know the use cases and the pain points that the DoD and the military are trying to solve. That's just one part of public sector. We also cover a dozen states from the state and local perspective, where we're able to talk about those different pain points, use cases, and perspectives from the state and local side, to know the challenges that are coming out with different states and what they're trying to solve and how they can leverage and utilize ServiceNow to solve those problems. So from a GlideFast perspective, we talk about how we cover every product from ITSM, ITOM, ITAM for asset management, CSM for customer service, HR for human resources, service delivery. But it's more than just knowing a product. It's knowing how to take that product and map it back to a customer. In this case, the public sector space on all those different levels by having different consultants of different talents and experiences engage and help solve those problems, right? We're in a unique situation with our public sector team to be able to lean in and help solve those pain points and those problems with our over 650 employees that we have worldwide. We have that subset inside of GlideFast that focuses specifically on the public sector space.
Listen, I appreciate that insight. And listen, Brett Carl, VP of Industry Solutions and Alliances, I want to thank you for joining me for this Lunch and Learn.
Thank you, Collie. Appreciate it.
Bye.